The work of UIC Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning Communities, or affectionately known as TLC, sparks, cultivates, and guides teaching innovation in ways that build on faculty's expertise and support their growth as teachers. In this video, we present a brief snapshot of the many stories of faculty members from across the many UIC colleges and departments who have been a part of the TLC program during its first 2 years. So here's how the story goes for Don Morrison, professor of biological sciences and a recognized researcher, who became a TLC teaching scholar in spring 2016 and had the opportunity to attend workshops, teaching conversations, being mentored by peers called master teaching scholars, and be a part of communities of faculty who were talking teaching, or in other words, talking about how to support their students' learning, retention, graduation, and success, both while at UIC and after they graduate. After completing his semester in the TLC, Don decided to give flipped instruction a try in his upcoming genetics course, but he needed to find a niche, his own niche. And indeed, he found a wonderful one that will become apparent in this video.
In the summer of 2016, Don worked with me and the Learning Technology Solutions Collaborators, a division of the UIC Academic Communications and Computing Center that brings together support in instructional design, software support, and support with classroom and computer lab technology to empower faculty through learning technologies. As Don's instructional designer, I listened to his ideas and offered suggestions that had the potential to be enacted in a large class while staying true to the learning interactions and experiences that Don was envisioning. Suggestions for technological integration considered existing digital tools and learning management systems that were already accessible to UIC faculty and matched Don's existing digital fluency and expertise. After the instructional design was created, technical support by the Learning Technology Solutions Unit was needed to develop the media and set up the Blackboard space. LTS staff and I regularly met with Don to develop media and troubleshoot technical issues. Don implemented the innovation in his fall 2016 genetics class. During this time, a colleague who was teaching the same course, Suzanne McCutcheon, was paying close attention to what Don was doing. Based on his experience implementing the instructional innovation in the fall of 2016, Don tweaked a few aspects and mentored and supported Suzanne as they both implemented the innovation in their spring 2017 classes. In the video, you will get a feel for the innovation, and you will also hear from both Don and Suzanne as they reflect on what this experience was like for them.
Idea going around that you can do something better with an hour's time than doing a lecture. And multiple people say they think they have found things that are better to do with an hour's time than doing a lecture. So I thought it was interesting to see what those were. For many years now, after class 1 day a week, I've gone into the cafeteria, had students join 3 or 4 tables together and invited them to come and talk about genetics. And regularly, 15 or 20 students out of 300 would drift in and out. And they would come with questions. How do you solve this genetics problem, Professor? And I never told them. But instead, I asked them to draw out on paper what the problem was and to consult with the people who were sitting next to them. And we could see what they could do, what they were missing, what critical step they were missing, and the sort of a Socratic dialogue helped them to see that they knew everything that was needed to solve it if they just organized their thoughts properly. But the office hour discussion has a different flavor to it. And it involves the students not just remembering something or answering a very simple question, but actually engaging in analysis. And that doesn't happen in the middle of the lecture. But for this course, for the genetics course, doing a logical analysis of a family history in terms of gene function and transmission is the key to understanding genetics. The goal was to create the positive features of the office hour discussion with 300 students. So we set out to replace the office hour discussion with students' solution work in view for all of the students in the class. Get the students, 300 students working, you need to have them focus in smaller groups. A group of 300 just doesn't function. And the functional group is a set of 4 students because the edge students can see what the middle students are doing. So we started with that idea. A procedure of creating a discussion forum with an image that goes on the screen from Blackboard of a genetics problem of some kind. And once it's in view, then we ask the class, all right, in groups of 4, get out a piece of paper and a pencil, or better yet, a very dark pen. And together work out a solution to this question and send it in so we can put it on the screen. How do they send it in? What is it that students all have? A camera. And it turns out they can do a very good job of photographing what they've written and posting it into Blackboard in the discussion thread as an image. So by the end of 5 or 10 minutes, we can have a collection of the first 20 solutions that students have done that we can put on the screen as images. And then everybody can discuss.
Here we go. Start on this thread. Now let's see what we... Let's see what we have after another 6 minutes working on this. In principle, it's a lot like the first thread. So you're going to want to write a genotype-phenotype diagram first, and then follow the genes. Exactly.
What if you get a big and a little R?
Well, there you go. Little r causes yellow.
Are the genes like, what if you have like a big and a little R?
Yellow.
Yellow, okay. So it's like a reverse of the other question?
Yeah, yeah. So when it says little r causes yellow, the assumption is you're talking about a wild-type rat, except that it's little r. So A is assumed to be wild-type. Yeah.
The challenge here is to get these things posted quickly enough that you can look at a set of answers in 15 or 20 minutes and hopefully identify interesting errors and put them up and then ask the class, all right, is this right or wrong? And when the class says, oh, it's wrong, why is it wrong? And you have a discussion on important points.
Table. You see big R, any big R and big A combination is gray. Little A's with a big R makes black. Little R's with a big A makes yellow. Little R's and little A's together make white. But in this diagram, that's coming at the end, not at the beginning. Can we find such a chart? This is the guy. This is the guy that's been playing the eye clicker without registration. Now this is a beautiful diagram from Rame. Look, here's genotype, phenotype, genotype, phenotype, genotype, phenotype, genotype, phenotype. Each genotype is 4 alleles, 2 each for 2 genes. So, and this is 6 minutes ago. But that's a beautiful diagram.
challenge that was posted. And after about 4 minutes, the whole class was discussing this and starting to draw out an analysis. And I would just stop and do an iClicker question. I would put up on the screen a set of questions about this case and ask, okay, in this cross, who are the parents? And give some choices. In this cross, is this a case of recombination or dominance or something else? And give some choices. And in a period of 4 or 5 minutes, I can go through the thought process that students presumably just did for themselves, but provided explicitly, and see as after they've been thinking about it, what fraction of the class has figured out those important points. We've got a pretty good vote. So the noise in the room during this is very gratifying. It means there are 117 people here talking about genetics. All right, let's see. Let's see. What do you think? Now let's see, what did you think to start with?
Let's redo it. Reopen it.
We'll do that. We'll do that. This is really remarkable. In the 3 o'clock class where I asked this question, no, it's exactly like this. Same. Yeah. We will. So we're gonna just discuss this, and then we'll do this again. And that serves again as a way of finding points that need discussion, and others that have been made and don't need discussion. And they provide the one part of the organization that we did, the one part of what went on in that class that is for credit. These are not scored, because you'd have to score 75 of them every day. They're entirely informal for discussion, but the iClickers can be collected individually from everybody. And that provides a record of attendance and a record of participation and a record of having the main ideas. And then this collection of images is permanently stored in Blackboard. And the next day I can go through and decide which images to keep and which to eliminate as being illegible or not helpful or something. And then it's available to the students for the rest of the semester. It's an improvement over the office hour discussion, because at the end of the office hour, people went away with their, although sometimes a student would collect all of the napkins we had been writing on and keep them, but that was just one student. Whereas here everybody has access to this whole thing. Choose the challenges to make them less complicated, as simple as possible to illustrate a point, so that we can take less time per case. This is especially fun. It is always more enjoyable to get feedback, and here it's constant feedback. Yeah, I recommend it unless it turns out that for some reason it's not working for the student for that hour. But I think there's no drawback to having sets of students communicate and discuss genetics questions. I had done 4 weeks of experimental flipped class. And that seemed like a success. It was useful in the fall semester. But in the spring semester, we had the course to teach again, and Suzanne thought it looked attractive enough that it was worth giving it a try. So this semester we each did a separate flipped class for 8 weeks and have now 4 times as much experience with it.
Taught together in the fall, but it was only Don that had done the flipped. And I think, I was paying attention to what was going on, and he did seem to be having, a pretty good success with it. So And he had worked out all the kinks, as I would say, so that it made my life a little bit easier when we decided to, we were going to teach again the same course, genetics, in the spring, and he convinced me to try flipping the classroom. Initially, I think it's a little bit different for the students, and I would say that their first reaction might have been, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this. But I think what made it useful is that they really get to talk. They had an interaction with their professor, where if you're just up there lecturing, there isn't that. And I think that after they, tried it, that I would say the majority of the students were pretty positive about the whole experience. The fact that they were working together, and then if we showed an answer, and all of a sudden people were like, no, that's not what I got. And you could hear them all talking and interacting with each other. And I think that that's really useful, to have other students. And I'm not sure that they might form bonds with other students, but they were doing row from row sometimes, where someone would say, no, I got this, and answer, and the other people would say, no, I got this. And so there was more interaction than I think usually happens. And then they would also afterwards come up and say, wait a minute, if they didn't quite understand why their answer or why a particular answer wasn't correct, they would come up and want an explanation. So I think I saw more enthusiasm and interaction, where you don't know really what they're thinking when they leave lecture, if it's just a normal lecture. I think we did see an improvement in their test scores.
Key for this material is for students to engage with it. And listening to a lecture or reading a text isn't as much engagement as if you're arguing with your neighbor. And getting 300 students or 200 of the 300, or whatever the number is, to do that simultaneously every week increases the engagement and changes the nature of the engagement. They weren't not coming to this non-required class. They weren't staying silent in the non-required class. So I count it as a success.
I would say that there is a percentage of students who are very reluctant to engage this, but I felt that most of the students were nodding their head and saying, yeah, they really did enjoy the flipped class. I don't know if you'll have 100%, and I think it may go more to they're unfamiliar with the whole idea. And if they experience it more, they might embrace it more. But I got the impression that most of the students were positive about it. We have a limited amount of time, so sometimes it feels like we're not getting through the whole explanation of a problem that we've gone through in class. And so I think some people leave with like, I don't really know if I got the answer. And so I think I would try to incorporate maybe more breaks with clickers so that I make sure that the whole class is on the same point. But I'm going to try to spend the summer thinking about this before the fall.
I'm thinking we can invent some way to include a little bit of reinforcement for viewing the recorded lecture.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of obvious ways to do that we haven't thought about or worked on, and that can be helpful for sure. No, I think we've learned it's not a matter of class size. Because we can take 300 students in a room and divide them into 75 little discussion groups working in parallel. And I think they're knowing that any one of those groups' work result is going to be up on the screen in 5 minutes. Allows good quality of engagement. However, the first time you do it, it's good to have some extra time to prepare. When we did this on a trial basis for 4 weeks, that followed 4 weeks of finding all of all of the glitches and all of the sources of support on campus to make it work well. It's not, even with our experience, it's not going to be automatic. You started this semester and it took, there was a learning curve for doing it?
Definitely. Yeah, so if you have someone who can sort of walk you through it, it's very helpful. So I had much fewer problems than Don did because he was very helpful in getting me. And I think you had come up with a fairly workable format, which is what I think the biggest thing for someone to do is to find an idea they think will work. And then if they have something, then it's worth trying.
A key part of the design was that it used software that everybody has, hardware that everybody has, the campus Blackboard system that everybody has access to. So there were no special expenses or special things to learn, except using a version of PowerPoint for recording things. And that must make it easier to pass on. And having a technical support staff on campus that's ready to help more or less instantly is really valuable. Of course, you can always go to the youngest person in the room and ask them, but having experienced support staff is a really valuable thing if they're going to get into this.
I'm
Beth, you want to
surprised
say?
that it worked as well as it did. I really am. I mean, it was new, it was different, and yet it worked. So I guess that's my main thing. I know I need to tweak my lectures. I know over the summer I'll have a lot more time to really think about some of the questions. To ask them and maybe find simpler ways, because I guess the biggest problem is that it takes us a lot of time to go through a problem. You have to make sure that you ask something that they can do fairly quickly so we can move on to another concept. We've both taught the class many times before, so it's not like it was a new material. So I think we've thought about how to teach genetics before, so that helped a lot. But I still think there's a few things I could tweak.
My first experience with multimedia in teaching on this campus was when I started carrying in my lecture jacket 2 pieces of chalk, a red one and a white one. So I had multicolored diagrams on the blackboard. And it has evolved since then. And this little way of managing a large class comes not really from us, but it comes from the Teaching Scholar program. Because it's only because we were invited to come last spring and hear people discuss teaching approaches and problems that we had the idea, well, maybe you can do things differently and maybe you can invent a way to do things differently. So that initiative, which is the first time in 40 years that anybody approached me and said, wouldn't you like to think about your teaching, was really valuable. Despite the fact that on this campus, teaching is not considered important. No one in our department has ever been promoted for teaching. So the Teaching Scholar program is doing something really important and valuable.
Innovation, collaboration, attunement to students, commitment, mentoring, risk-taking, supporting structures as pillars of the journey to strengthen and reform teaching are all beautifully highlighted in the video.